I worked really hard again and got completely stuck and broke. And that was all a great experience. Fine. Okay. Then when I let go completely, asked to be guided, stayed in the present moment, there was this magical transformation happened. There's a lesson there. And the way I would look at it now is basically it's like jumps in levels of consciousness.
My name is Paul Harvey, and this is Life, Passion and Business. We're about helping you explore, finding your passion for life and the work that you do. But it's so much more than that. It's about finding clues to the big life questions. What does it mean to be successful? What is the meaning of life? If you're looking for more, then join me on this journey where together we will discover through interviews, tools and tips how to live life full of meaning, passion and purpose. Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with John Purkis. So to bring you up to speed if you missed part 1, John has got to the point in his life where he realises that someone else is in control. Yes, we were 40 minutes in and we only just got to the success model. The point is, John has had a very varied and rich life, and the conversation really does set the scene as to where he is now. Once John decided to surrender to the process in order to move forward, the result was that he landed himself a job that paid him £125,000 a year. That's 150,000 US dollars for my American friends. In the UK, that's a very good salary, and I'm pretty sure that's a pretty darn good salary in the US too. We also discover some of the really weird stuff that happened around the interview, all because he asked for it to happen. He asked for the job. What is really surprising in some way is that John, who was a very analytical, spreadsheet, business-based person, his life has completely flipped into someone who is very spiritually based. He lives his life from a spiritual perspective. So we're going to talk about meditation, mindfulness, transcendental meditation. Our conversation is pretty boundless and touches on racism, touches on world viewpoints. We explore how his books pour out of him, how he never suffers from writer's block. We discuss his daily practice and how the discovery of a guru completely changed his life and gave him the process of completion. It was this process that changed John's outlook and was the beginning of the book, Letting Go. The point is, we're all reacting out of past pain. We see the world and filter it through those past points of pain. Once we learn to release those pain points, the world around us changes. We explore the process and look at some of the benefits that he has experienced. Our whole conversation is about enlightenment and letting go, and it's a wonderful conclusion to the story of John Purkis.
Which I think is very important. So I said, okay, God, Jesus, whoever you are, I give up. I cannot solve this thing. Please guide me. Right? And then this advert appears. I go for all these interviews. I get the job, right? Here's the spooky part. Actually, I don't mind talking about this. This is a long time ago. But think about it. This is 22 years ago. So for a long time, I've been trying to earn £100,000 a year.
Right.
And this guy, this is over 20 years ago. I got to the point of earning, 45, which was a lot for a 26-year-old.
Yes, it was.
Over 20 years. And so I met this guy in Wiltshire. He was earning 100 and I hadn't got to 50. And I thought, wow, he's earning twice as much as I ever did. So I was earning like 45 having a horrible life. Yeah. He was earning 100 having a great life. And then I thought, okay, I want to earn 100. But so for the next, whatever it was, 7 years, I worked away really hard and got nowhere near like network marketing and all these things. And here's the spooky part is I got this job and the base salary was 98. When you added all the benefits, which I took in cash, it was 98, right? And they had a guaranteed bonus that took me to 125. This is in 97. And I looked and I thought, this is amazing. So when I used my brain and worked my guts out, I got nowhere close, right? When I let go and asked to be guided and allowed my intuition to work, I got there automatically, right? So I was now in this job, and it was hard work. I mean, I worked 12 hours a day for 5 years.
I should imagine it was 12 hard work. I mean, just to hit 100,000 a year, you've got to bring some bacon home, haven't you?
I mean, it was guaranteed 125 in the first year.
I know, but you still got to bring some bacon home to meet that target.
Yeah, but the big difference, this is the big difference, was that for the first time in my life, age 35, for the first time in my life, I was doing a job that I really enjoyed. I was really well qualified to do it. I was meeting great people. I was working with great people. And I chose to work that hard, because I just wanted to make it happen.
Yeah.
And what was weird about it, well, there's several weird things which may be relevant to your audience, is I actually resisted getting promoted to partner because I couldn't see the point. Like, I was below partner and I was working away. And I thought there were several disadvantages to being partner. And eventually they basically persuaded me to become a partner, which is the opposite of many people's story, right? I mean, lots of people are they're killing themselves to be partner. And I was saying, no. And eventually they said, and here's the other weird bit, which I don't mind talking about now. I've kind of resisted it for a long time, but I discovered this memo on a file, and it said who they were looking for when they ran this advert.
Right.
And they had these 5 criteria. And what was spooky was I was a perfect match to the 5 criteria. So They were looking for someone who, they thought ideally this person would have these 5 things, but some of the people they recruited had 3 or 4 of them. I was exactly on the bullseye.
Wow.
And so what this showed me was, okay, so I worked really hard and got clinical depression. I worked really hard again and got completely stuck and broke. And that was all a great experience. Fine. Okay. Then when I let go completely, asked to be guided, stayed in the present moment, there was this magical transformation happened. There's a lesson there. And the way I would look at it now is basically it's like jumps in levels of consciousness. Like when you move up a level, everything changes, and it's going to be less because it'll be less stressful. You may still choose to work hard, but it's actually less stressful. It's more fulfilling. It's more rewarding. Money comes more easily. And I think I'm in the middle of doing it again right now. Actually, I'm going up a level.
Oh, well, okay. So I know that you're an author. I mean, we've got a long journey over your story to hear. So where did the books come in at this point?
Yeah. So what happened was the books, essentially, despite all the academic and other background, the headhunting and the books all came from the same thing, which was learning to meditate.
Okay.
In my case, accidentally.
And do you put that, I mean, your meditation started in France, I guess, in Paris.
Yeah. So I started doing what I thought was this little exercise thing out of a book. Then when I got back to London, I connected with an organization you may know called the School of Economic Science. It's now called the School of Philosophy.
I don't know, but
anyway, they run adverts on the tube, in the days when people used to take the tube.
Oh yes, those days.
But essentially they were teaching Vedic philosophy, so Veda means, as you probably know, Veda means knowledge. They were teaching the philosophy which gave rise to Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, yoga, Ayurveda. It all comes from the Veda, right?
Right.
So they were teaching, they still do, they're teaching Vedic philosophy. And they taught this very simple exercise, which was kind of a bit more sophisticated than what I was doing. I think they call it reconnecting with the senses. So basically you sit there and you bring your attention back to your breath, to the weight of your body on the chair, to the air against your skin. You're basically using your senses to return to now.
Yeah.
So we did it a bit more formally. And so what happened was, because I discovered this thing, like my life had suddenly shifted from dreadful to great. I kept having these conversations with people, like friends who I was trying to help. And then I realized I just need to start writing this stuff down. So I started writing in 97. I just started writing it down. And then the books have all come from, and they've all come from meeting lots of people who have the same problem. Then we have the same conversation, and then eventually I start writing down the answers.
Okay. Is it so you get guided to write the books in a way by the people that you meet?
Yeah, probably. And here's the paradox, which may be relevant to some of your listeners, is when I was at Cambridge, I went to the library, and I think at that time there were 1 million books, and now there are several million, right? And I just thought writing books is pointless. I'm not going to do it, right? It's a waste of time. So, this is like ego. Yeah. I'm not going to do it. And then, of course, after I surrendered and was guided and got this great job, the books just started coming. They just started pouring out of me. And
so
what's
do you
funny
think are they you, or are they channeled, do you think?
I think they're channeled. I mean, also my perception of me has changed totally, but the way I see it is when books like that happen, they come through, this may sound weird, they come through the body mind known as John Purkis. Like, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yes.
The body mind commonly known as John Purkis becomes a channel. Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing Prince had the same realization. That's why he became the artist known as Prince.
Yeah. I think musicians and writers and speakers, when it happens naturally, as far as I can see, it's channeled. Yeah. It's not this kind of this idea we have about the impoverished author in the attic. I mean, that does happen, but I would suggest that's ego, because once you channel, it just pours out of you. I mean, for example, I don't get writer's block. Okay. I'm either writing or I'm not. I mean, sometimes I get stuck, at which point I stop writing. And then what frequently happens is I meet someone, or I see something on the telly, or I read a book, and then all of a sudden it starts flowing, or I meditate, and then it all starts flowing again.
So you're a daily meditator? Do you meditate a lot?
Yeah, typically, I've got so many spiritual practices now, but typically I would do transcendental meditation twice a day, but sometimes it's only once, or sometimes it's not at all. Sometimes if I'm tired, I do it 3 times.
Is that chanting, that one?
No. So basically I learned what's now known as mindfulness, and then I did that for, I think, 6 years. And what I found, and some people, I have friends who do that for the rest of their lives, right? What I found was it never got any easier because the mind kept wandering. Mm-hmm. I'm good friends with Shamash Aludina, who wrote Mindfulness for Dummies.
Okay.
And I think it's evolved a bit. There's now a thing called kindfulness, where you kind of don't beat yourself up about it.
Okay. It's a very good thing.
Yeah. So some people do mindfulness very happily. And, I think Steve Jobs did Zen, which was similar. In my case, after about 6 years, an American friend said, well, why don't you try Transcendental Meditation, which is where you pay some money and they give you a mantra. And you have a little ceremony in Sanskrit with puja, And this is the thing which was brought to the West by Maharishi. Mm-hmm. And as I'm sure you know, the Beatles. And
yes.
So I started doing that, and that for me was like another big jump, because in my case, I mean, it works differently for different people, but I had this experience with it. At first, nothing happened, and then I felt like electronic pulses in my scalp while I was sitting there, and then I suddenly had, this is quite common, I had this feeling that I was falling. It felt like falling into a swimming pool while breathing normally.
Oh, okay.
So it was like extreme letting go. It's like you're sitting there and you think the mantra, which you've got from your teacher, right? And then it felt like falling. And this is, for some people, some people, when all that happens is they could feel lots of thoughts coming up, right? I don't want to mislead people. Some people just get lots of thoughts, which is fine. That's releasing stress.
Yeah.
Some of us, we get this feeling where you're like falling into nothingness. And for me, it was a radical experience, because it was, okay, so I'm conscious, but there are no thoughts and emotions. It's pure, basically you experience, it's pure consciousness. So in a way, it's like an insight into enlightenment, because you're there, right? You still exist, but there aren't any thoughts or emotions, and suddenly, and it's blissful, right? So afterwards you realize, I realized, that was weird. So I was conscious, but there were no thoughts or emotions. So I'm clearly not my thoughts and emotions, but because there weren't any, right? But I was still there.
So it's like, so I get the sense that we're a lens. We are a lens of focused energy. That is us.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah. I think lens is nice.
Yeah.
It's a way. It's a way of perceiving things.
And so that obviously that is your life now. I mean, you obviously you do headhunting, but do you teach meditation? I mean, do you use the books? Are you doing courses? What do you do?
Well, so it keeps changing. But what's happened is I keep writing books basically to help people.
Right.
And all I do in the books is describe what works for me. And I'm essentially trying to accelerate other people's progress and help them falling down holes that I fell down.
The Letting Go book is very good, I have to say.
Well, thank you. So sometimes we do things that don't work. Well, I do.
Well, what occurred to me, there would be no space for racism if everyone just let go, because if you're not judging the present by the past, you can't be racist.
It would all go. Well, I mean, there are several stages to letting go, but I mean, if everybody let go completely, there would be no wars, no violence, no racism. We'd live longer. A lot of serious illnesses would disappear.
Oh, well.
So, yeah.
Perhaps there's no business sense in that. Perhaps it's not a good business model.
Well, I'll speak personally. I don't go looking for coaching work. I've done some coaching in relation to the last book, which is about personal branding.
Right.
I haven't done coaching in relation to letting go, because I've been following a guru for 6 years. I point people towards meditation techniques and towards him.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to learn mindfulness or transcendental meditation. I point people towards him because, you know, he's got all the answers, because he's reviving the whole tradition. I sometimes get paid to speak. I've been paid quite well for speaking, but what I find myself doing is I'm just describing my experiences and encouraging people to have their experiences. And what I'd be interested in your point of view. What I suspect may happen with, you know, coaches and psychotherapists, and I suspect a lot of them may end up helping other people to let go.
I suspect it's true. What I've come to realize is that we have to find our own way most of the time. And someone can guide us in a direction, but it's our solution in the end of the day.
Well, I would qualify that. I can only speak from my experience. So I spent, I think it was 16 years looking for the answer. So I went through, you know, Kabbalah, Sufism, Buddhism, Christianity. I went around all the traditions. And on the way, I learned Transcendental Meditation. And then 6 years ago, I got completely stuck again, as usual. And I got connected. He's got a long name, Sri Nityananda Paramashivam. So we call him Swamiji because he's got a long name.
You must have practiced that a few times.
Yeah, it took a while. So I got connected with him, and I realized, so basically what happened was, in Transcendental Meditation, you have this experience of blissful, just pure consciousness. And he had this 800-page book, and I've only ever read half of it, right? But his first book is called Living Enlightenment. And I suddenly realized what he's doing is he's teaching people to live their whole life like a meditation. And I thought, I just realized that's it. You know, if you can live your whole life in kind of blissful awareness and be very productive and help people, you know, clearly that's where we're going, right? To me.
It's interesting. You know, this podcast is constructed around 5 questions, which you asked me about this morning.
Have we answered any of them?
Well, I mean, it is interesting. We have been going for quite a while, and I'm querying how to move forward with it, because it's been a fascinating story.
I'll follow your lead.
But it's been a fascinating story, and it's like, I don't know how relevant my questions are, but I mean, okay. So what was very interesting for me is that you tried the traditional success model, and it almost killed you.
Yeah, as has happened to many other people.
So what is your definition of success?
My definition of success, I would say, is enlightenment. But enlightenment is not what many people think it is.
You're going to have to qualify that, aren't you, really?
Right. So I'll tell you my understanding of enlightenment from my level of consciousness, where it is right now, which is all I can do. Excuse me. So my understanding of enlightenment is dropping the ego completely. So I have a body and a mind, but I am not the body and the mind. So essentially, I am pure consciousness, which is what people experience in meditation, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people come away with the idea that pure consciousness is something passive. Like, I cut myself off from the world, bad things happen, I do nothing about it. It's all a bit kind of soft. My experience of it as it's developing is I am pure consciousness, and what happens is compassion comes naturally. Like, you naturally have compassion for people and situations, and then I become very active to do something about it. So I know people, I mean, I've met people who are enlightened, and they tend to be compassionate and very hardworking.
I have a duality, a confusion around this idea that you live in the moment, in the now,
Yeah.
and you drop the past.
Yes.
But how do you look at the situations in front of you,
Yeah.
which could possibly be dangerous or something, without reference to the past?
Okay. Well, what I would say is, it's a very good question. So
the man, if a man has got a gun,
yes,
right, and I go, well, he's lovely, he's a man, and I trust him.
No, that may be foolish.
Well, yes, it might be, but the point is, from living in the moment, I have no judgment over what this man is violent or dangerous or anything. But my minds from the past would say anyone with a gun, unless I know them, is probably dangerous.
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. And the way I would answer that is, if I just mention, so the technique which I learned from Swamiji the first time I went to see him is called completion. Mm-hmm. So what you do, so basically every human being who is not enlightened has pain which is stored in their system, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we talked about this. Maybe we talked about a lot. So if you, when something happens, we're all triggered by some pain from the past, which is stored in our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. And what you'll notice, well, I'm sure you've noticed, is different people are triggered by different things.
Politics is a damn good example, but carry on.
If you go on Facebook, I think like Facebook is like a festival of triggering, right?
Yes.
So when you see a man with a gun or a knife, you will naturally be triggered by any painful experiences that you have in your system. Now, my dad used to go hunting and he had guns, right? So if I see someone with a gun, actually, I tend not to be triggered by guns. Okay. I'm used to them. I've been to Israel, Bosnia. When I see the police with the gun, for example, I don't react. Some people do, right? Now, what you can do about it, or when you see a black person, or like some people see it triggered by seeing a black person, right? Whatever. When I first went to the US, I realized all these white people are triggered by seeing black people.
Right.
So what happens is, if we do the completion exercise, which is in the book, which Swamiji has been teaching for a long time, is we go back. So when you're triggered, what you do is you go back and you find the first time in your life when you were triggered, when you accumulated pain. And it will be between the age of 2 and 7.
Okay.
Right. So up until the age of 2, you were like blissful and we cry and we wet our pants and we're spontaneous, right? Between 2 and 7, we accumulate all these pain patterns. So what happens when you see someone with a gun is something may be triggered in you, and it may appear unrelated, but you're triggering a pain pattern, right? And so the whole point of chapter 3 of the book and of what Swamiji was teaching when I first met him is you can go, and I suspect this is what coaches and therapists will start helping people to do, I imagine, is you go back and you help people to relive those incidents in their early childhood and get rid of the pain pattern. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is when you meet this person with a knife, your intuition will tell you what to do. What's really important is you won't, and your past will be available to you, right? Like, I know that's a knife because I know what knives are, right? Yes. I haven't erased my memory. I know what a knife is.
Yes.
I know it's a dark alley. The point is you will see the situation for what it is, but you won't be triggered by stuff that happened when you were 3.
Yeah. And that's what negotiators do. Negotiators that can stand there in that position with someone with a gun, they can be in the moment with that person and find a way of talking them down because they're not reacting to what the triggers.
I'll give you, I'm going to be controversial here, but the guy, was it George Floyd who got killed?
Yes.
Right. So I watched that on the telly, right? And by the way, I mentored a young black man for 3 or 4 years. Right. And what I saw happen is George Floyd was arrested by these 2 policemen.
Yeah.
And there came a point when he panicked.
Yeah.
Right. And this person who I mentored, the Metropolitan Police came through the front door while I was on the phone to him.
Right.
And he panicked.
Yeah.
But in London, police don't have guns, right?
No, they don't.
There they had guns. So then he panicked and ran away. And I think he turned around and then he got shot dead, right? So look, standing back from it, everybody was triggered, right? There were 2 policemen. when I last looked, there are 300 million guns in the US, right?
Yeah.
There's one gun for every person.
Yeah.
So the two policemen, they've got all their pain patterns about other policemen who've been killed, bad thing. You've probably seen this. So there are policemen who went into the service because their father was murdered, right?
Yeah.
So the policeman has got all his stored pain patterns about guns, black people, violence.
Yeah.
The George Floyd has got all of his conditioning, all of his pain patterns, some of which may be inherited. Some may come from some of this stuff comes from our parents. If you believe in past lives, it may come from past lives. So you've got three people who've got all their pain patterns, all their conditioning, right? And then a tragedy unfolds.
Yeah.
So, well, where we need to get to is we go into situations where we've got our memories, we've erased all our pain patterns, and nobody panics. Nobody gets triggered, right? I've not been involved in negotiation, but it sounds like what you're describing, like the negotiator is not triggered.
No, that's exactly what happens. The negotiator is calmly believes this person's not going to do them any harm.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed the first time I went to the US, actually, I flew from Mexico to New Orleans. I grew up in Leicester, which is multiracial, right? I went to New Orleans and I realized, hey, the white people are really scared of the black people. That's weird. And I remember like hitching a lift with two black guys in a truck.
Yeah.
And the white people, they thought I was insane. I thought it was normal. And I lived in Chicago, and I love photography. And I used to wander around with my camera in a paper bag. And the white Americans thought I was nuts. I used to go to, and if I met a black person, I would just say hi. And there are white Americans who can't do that. But it's because there's generations of pain and conditioning, right? And we have, in Britain, we have ours. We have also pain and conditioning going back generations.
Of course. Every person does, and and I guess there's cultural pain and cultural problems.
Yeah. And so mentoring this black guy was a real insight because I was there when things happened, and you could see all the things we read about that happen to young black men happened to him.
Right.
So the way I see it is, and I think this is where coaching and therapy can be very helpful, I think ultimately the guru takes away the really bad pain. But I think one thing that the coach or the therapist can do is help people to identify all of that pain. To be crude, you can either analyze your shit or you can flush it away.
And there's also this thing about there's also the thing about being at the right age and stage to deal with it, isn't there? I know that's part of it. I think it's like you come to your pain, if you're dealing with pain now, but from me, the 57-year-old man, I can deal with pain differently than I could when I was 47 or when I was 37. Yeah. I have a life experience that's now saying, and that is my past that's allowing me to deal with it.
Yes. But there are people, some people will never have the kind of, Debbie Ford, like lying on the kitchen floor, having taken lots of drugs, Some people never have that sort of rock bottom experience. Some people have it when they're very, very young, So there are people who, clearly, there are people who are enlightened at 12. Everyone's different. And there's no point comparing. But back to what you're saying, I think sometimes you do need to hit rock bottom before you wake up to this stuff, My question I ask myself is, okay, I'm in a situation I don't like. How am I creating this? I know I create it. How am I doing that?
Yeah.
And to be controversial, I'm all in favor of removing all the barriers about racism, right? Let's remove all the barriers so everyone can flourish. But I don't believe that's the complete answer. We also have to turn inwards and say, how am I creating this situation? And there's a role for people who help people to do that. Instead of saying it's the system, it's everybody else. Well, yeah, we can change the system, but at some point we have to turn inwards and say, right, well, what do I need to remove to allow myself to fulfill my potential?
Yeah. It's a massive subject, and I'd love to talk about it, but I don't think it has a place here because we can't give it justice to unpack that subject. That's the problem.
That's fine.
And I'd love to talk about it, but I don't see how I can. Take too long.
Another time.
Another time, absolutely. But it does bring the whole concept of this thing about we are all reacting out of past pain is
yes.
What is so disappointing about it is no one's recognizes it. It doesn't get recognized by the law or by politics.
I think that's one thing I need to do and others need to do to help change the world. And I do challenge people on Facebook, say, okay, yeah, we are all responsible. There's a danger that we give people the message that they are powerless. And what I would say is, you're not powerless. You are God. What we need to do is remove the pain. And great news, there are at least 2 techniques which will remove the pain. And some people don't want to remove the pain, but I just, the reason I wrote the latest book is to say, here is the technique which will remove your pain. And I've done it and it's really helped me. I encourage you to try it for yourself.
So, my next question that I would normally ask everyone is contribution, but I'm clear what your contribution to the world is. It's your books and your outlook.
Maybe, yeah. And also I'm still keen to help companies that are going to help change the world, like there can be medical advances or better software, but it's all expansion and improving people's lives, Yeah. Transformation, essentially. That's what I'm really interested in.
So what's the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have done?
Oh, that wasn't on your list.
I know.
Okay. Okay. The question you should have asked me is, what should listeners do next?
What should listeners do next, John?
And my answer would be,
meditate.
The most useful thing you can do now is learn a technique called completion.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 ways to learn it. One is you buy the book and you learn it out of the book, which is fine. Another way is you watch videos made by Sri Nityananda Paramashivam. It's Nityananda, Nityananda, which means
I will put the links on the podcast. There's no way anyone's going to write that down or remember it.
It means eternal bliss. At the end of all his talks, he says, be blissful, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, if you can, and I flew to India, I spent money, flew to India, spent 3 weeks on an ashram to learn this, right? You can learn it for free on YouTube or for 10 quid buy my book. I don't care. But essentially, if you can apply yourself and learn completion, you will remove your pain patterns. And by the way, this dovetails beautifully with meditation. So carry on meditating, learn completion, start removing your pain patterns. What you will notice, well, 2 things will happen. A is your life will start to feel more and more like meditation, like blissful, open, empty, very productive. The other thing you will notice is the situations and people around you will all change. So as you become complete, essentially you're becoming whole. As you become whole, everything around you will change and improve.
How's that happened for you?
Well, it keeps happening. So the first time, I'll give you an example, right, which has happened in the last month, right? Mm-hmm. So I've joined a new company and I come across people who are behaving in a not very constructive way. So what I see is some of my colleagues, they react by doing all the classic stuff like, he's a problem, how do we deal with it, all of that. What I do is I realize, okay, there's something here that isn't working. And this is all based on the principle of oneness, right?
Right, yeah.
So there's no separation between him and me, like he's a part of me, right? So what I do is so he's doing something, we're all getting triggered by what he's doing. So then I go back and say, right, what pain pattern is he triggering in me? And I find something in my early childhood or, probably, and I realize, okay, so what I do is I go back, this is the technique. I go back, imagine he's triggering something that happened to me when I was 5. Mm-hmm. Right? I go back, I become 5 years old. I don't remember. I become a 5-year-old. I relive that experience intensely until the pain is dropped and I feel neutral about it. So it's still there as a memory, right? But it's not, the pain is gone. This is the spooky thing, is he then changes. And this happens over and over again. So my colleagues have spent all this time, as far as I can tell, trying to figure out how to fix the situation. What I've done is I've fixed my own pain. I let go of my own pain. And what happens is he then changes. And this happens with girlfriends, it happens with colleagues, it happens with clients, basically. And then what happens is sometimes new people appear or the existing people change, but I haven't manipulated them. All I've done is clean up my own pain.
Impressive.
So it works. Yeah.
There's a story and there's a poem or a prayer called something about Nopo. I can't remember the full thing, but I'll find it and I'll put it for the podcast. But the story basically is that there was a psychiatrist in an asylum or someplace in the States, and he never saw a patient, but they all got better.
Oh, wow.
And the way he did it is that he would take the document out of the patient and he would look at them and he would say, I forgive you, please forgive me. And it was a forgiveness process, and I love you. And he would just say this thing constantly over this thing.
Oh, wow.
And they would get better.
Well,
and I think that's the same thing. It's releasing the pain that he has or that they trigger from him.
I'd love to hear more about that. It sounds as though it's based on the same principle, which is oneness.
Yes, it is.
And the other thing, just to mention, is what the latest thing I've experienced is remote viewing, which is like describing someone's house without going there. Or
oh, okay.
And I don't know if you know, but during the Cold War, the Americans did the same thing. They were
yes, they did.
And that's also based on oneness. And so these things, they're all things that happen on the path to enlightenment. So as you go more and more into oneness, all these things happen. It sounded as though your psychiatrist was tapping into oneness, probably.
Well, I mean, so if people want to get in touch with you, what's the plan? I mean, do you want to speak to people? Do you want people to get in touch with you?
Speak to people. My website is johnpurkis.com.
Okay.
So they can just message me through the website and I get an email immediately. So you'll put the link, will you?
I will put the links there. And what will you offer them if they come and talk to you?
Well, what I'm really interested in at the moment, if anyone needs a chief executive or a finance director or anything like that, I'm keen to talk to them.
Very good about that, yeah. Particularly if it's Google.
Yeah. Anything exciting, yeah. Anything exciting, that'd be great. What I really want to do, I mean, if they want coaching, I kind of point them towards the book and towards my guru, because he's got all the answers, right?
Yeah.
And most of his stuff is free.
Okay.
But one thing I do want to do is I want to sell 2 million copies of the book.
That's a nice idea.
Which means if they share the book, which means I'm guessing it will then reach 3 to 5 million people.
Mm-hmm.
Really help them. And so what I'm really interested in, and you're helping hugely, what I'm really interested in, and the lockdown has helped actually, so I can't go on tour. So basically I'm going from one podcast to another. So the way I don't know if you, I read once that James Blunt, the way he became successful as a singer is he did loads and loads of little gigs. And suddenly millions of people knew him and he became famous, right? So
the way Madonna did it is that she would phone radio stations across America in the middle of the night. Hi, it's Madonna.
Is that how she did it? Yeah.
No, she did it.
Well, like Wayne Dyer did those. He got in a caravan, I think, and went to radio stations. So the modern equivalent that I can see is I do loads and loads of little podcasts.
Yes.
And they keep recommending me. Well, it's happened with, I do a podcast and someone says, oh, I heard your podcast. Can you do one with me?
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm doing loads of podcasts, doing more and more in the UK and the US.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm reaching people. And what's interesting is the format that's selling best is audiobooks in the US or through Audible.
So your books are on Audible, on Amazon?
On paper, the new book, Power of Letting Go, it's on paperback, Kindle and audiobook.
Right.
On Audible. And it's on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. So what I would really love to do is just carry on having conversations like this and reaching more people. So that's great. So thank you very much. You've been extremely helpful.
Well, this is what I love doing, having conversations like this. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
So the final question that I ask all of my guests, which is the big question, is what is the meaning of life for you? Because we're animals, really, but
well, as I said, I'm pure consciousness. Then I happen to have a body and a mind for the time being, right?
You're a consciousness in a meat parcel. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean and the body has some animal instincts. That's fine, So the meaning of life for me is enlightenment. But what I'd like to say is enlightenment is not hiding in a cave. enlightenment for me is feeling more and more blissful, being more and more healthy, helping more and more people. The way Swamiji describes it is life is for others. So basically, life becomes about helping others, and then kind of money and all the other stuff, it kind of becomes natural and automatic. Like you don't. Well, I don't know if you've had this experience. You know, if I chase after money, it runs away, right? if I focus on being complete and whole and helping people, the money keeps appearing.
It can't be bad.
Yeah, and it's a natural, and so it's yeah. So that's how I see it. So enlightenment is as you go along the path, and you find new ways to help people. I mean, as I mentioned, you know, when we first got connected, I never thought I would be involved in healing, and then when the COVID-19 thing started, I've been involved in healing. Well, basically, Swamiji heals through me, and 2 people recovered from COVID-19 in intensive care. One of them had leukemia, and her leukemia improved.
Wow.
So I never expected to be involved, and all of a sudden I'm channeling healing. Wow. Okay, that's new.
And the thing is not to be surprised over it, isn't it?
Well, to be fair, one thing, because you know how people talk to Jesus or talk to God. I talked to Swamiji. I said, please, because there are 440 of these yogic powers. I just said, please manifest all the powers through me.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, 2 people with COVID-19 appeared. One of them I never even met. One was a friend, and one the person I never even met. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there channeling healing for them without meeting them. I just do it with their photo.
Okay, brilliant. And it works.
Well, they both recovered, and the leukemia got quite a lot better. And then, yeah, and also I had tendinitis that's gone away. So what happened? You know, the healing goes through my body, and my tendinitis. Now I can go running again.
So because you had sciatica at one point.
Sciatica. But basically, what happened this time, because hopefully you learned, is I asked him. I said, "Please show me how I'm causing tendinitis." And the answer that came was posture. And I realized I was stretching. I learned stretching from a friend who did hurdling. I was like overstretching.
All right.
So I stopped doing that. And then also have a thing called an Atmalinga. Anyway, it's like a quartz crystal. Anyway, so I used that to heal myself. And yeah, now I can run without any pain. So I've just started running again.
Brilliant. I'm a runner, so you
I know,
you touched on the right subjects.
So
look, this is so for far as yourself, the meaning of life for you is about enlightenment and sharing.
Yeah. and I mean, I'm not sure, but in a way, I suppose we're all on the same journey. Not everyone realizes they're on the journey. You know, some are on the journey and they're feeling stuck.
I always say life is a quest from the cradle to the grave, and you choose how you want to journey that quest. But what I notice is a lot of people just tend to just let it pass.
Yeah, I suppose it's a quest. I mean, the way it's described, my friends in the Sangha community, they call about seeking. So at some point you start seeking, which sounds like you've been doing for quite a while. A lot we seek. I think my experience is if you find a real guru, and there are plenty of fake gurus, if you find a real one, then the transformation accelerates. And it's a bit like you're, as I did, you go around searching for the conveyor belt or something, and suddenly you're on the conveyor belt and you're moving.
Oh, right. So where do you think you're going to end up?
Enlightenment. Yeah. And of course, occasionally you fall off the conveyor belt or you climb back on, but at least you know, okay, I know where the conveyor belt is, as opposed to, I mean, 6 years ago, you know, I was searching, and what I found was different people had bits of the answer. Right. And it was quite frustrating, and I couldn't integrate it. And then eventually, oh, okay, you know, a light went. It was a bit like you're going up a mountain trying to find the path, and suddenly you find a path that goes straight to the top. Yeah. So
you think you found your path now?
Well, what I say is, the way to give the context, the Vedic tradition is, as I said, Veda means knowledge. Vedic tradition has the answers to everything.
Right.
The reason I follow Swamiji is he's reviving the entire tradition. He's what's known as an avatar. So Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, these are people who embody the whole thing. And when you kind of connect with them, you go very fast. Yeah.
Well, that seems like a nice place to stop.
Okay.
Connect with someone special and go very fast.
Yeah, connect with an avatar. That's the answer.
That's the answer. So, John Purkis, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to talk to you. And
thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Take care. See you.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
And that was Life, Passion and Business with Paul Harvey and my guest, John Purkis. And that was part 2 of an amazing conversation for me. I really enjoyed our time together. If you would like to reach out to John, he is very approachable. You can find him on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and numerous other social media sites, including his own website, which is johnpurkis.co.uk. I really must add, if you are interested in John's work, buy the book Letting Go, because a lot of what John talked about on the podcast is in that book, and it's very self-explanatory. The process of completion and all the processes he talks about that he's been through, he documents in the book. It is like a self-help book, but really practical and down to earth, so it's well worth the £10 it would cost you. Other than that, as I said, reach out to John or follow some of the other suggestions which you have found on the podcast. That's it for this week. If you like this podcast, please share it with friends. If you like it even better, do me a review on iTunes. However you can share, I will be most appreciative. Anyway, thank you for your time and attention, and I will catch you on Sunday. All the best.